Hi, it's Pat Gillis here. We just finished our last horse show of the season, and a couple of spectators made a couple of comments that I found really interesting. One person asked, "What does dressage even mean?" And another person said, "I just hate dressage." So the word dressage, it has its roots in the French language, and it just means training the horse. But then you have to ask yourself, well, what kind of training does it mean? Because, whether we like to admit it or not, every time we interact with a horse, we're training on some level. So we're either training the horse to understand something that we want, or we're training the horse to understand who we are. But either way, the horse is learning something. So when we're thinking about training, I would argue that what we're trying to do is to train to improve the horse's way of going. So when I say that, I don't mean necessarily that he can jump higher or go faster, although that can sometimes be a great benefit from good dressage training. So what we're talking about when we say improving the horse's way of going is that we want to give the horse a better chance at having a healthy and long life. So let's start by looking at the horse. A horse is essentially, he's like, he got a leg at each corner, like a table, right? He's got a leg at each corner, and then sort of like this shelf unit hanging off the front, which is his head and his neck. And so the horse ends up carrying about 60% of his weight on his front legs and 40% of his weight on his hind legs. And that's actually served the horse quite well for a millennium. But when we add the weight of the rider and the saddle and all the equipment onto the horse's back, that really changes the balance a lot. And the horse ends up carrying too much weight on his front legs. Now, if you look at his front legs, there's not a lot about those front legs that's going to absorb shock. Now we look at the horse's hind legs. This is where the power is. And we have now, there's 4 joints here. There's the hip, stifle, hock, and fetlock. These are the joints that can absorb shock. And so our goal when we're riding is to try to convince the horse to carry more of his weight on his hind legs. So we do that in the dressage ring through different exercises, and depending on the level of the test, the gymnastic and athletic ability of the horse is elevated depending on what level they're riding at. But the basic fundamental goal is to increase the horse's chances at having a long and healthy life. So that brings me to the other person who said that they just hate dressage. And I thought, why would that be? Now, I have a friend who articulated this problem much better than I ever could. And what she said was that many years ago, dressage kind of sort of split, and there became classical dressage, which is what we're talking about, it's improving the horse's way of going, and competitive dressage. Now they can both exist together for sure. Like you'll see it, the really, really good dressage riders, it's coexisting. But I think where the dislike of the sport comes is that sometimes in the competitive sphere, tools and tricks and training techniques are used that are perhaps not always in the horse's best interest. And so I think that probably when people say they don't like dressage, that might be what they're thinking about, as opposed to, I don't think anybody can be opposed to training a horse to increase his chances of having a healthy and long life. Anyway, that's it for this week. Before we go too in-depth on dressage, if you're watching this anywhere besides at our blog, which is at ismyhorsehappy.com, go on over there and scroll down, leave me a message, let me know what you think about dressage, if you have any opinions about it, and if you've ever looked at it as kind of 2 kinds of dressage, classical and competitive. I think that's a great way to look at it. I prefer the classical. I'm curious what you think too. So have a great week. Remember to thank your horse, and we'll see you next time.